Hi everyone and welcome back. Mindy here with you today, and I'm going to be sharing a card that I created using some supplies from Tailored Expressions, and I think you're really going to like them. I'm going to be starting off using this Big Blooms Lily stamp set. Now the thing with Tailored Expressions stamp set is they are red rubber stamps. They come just like this on that hard plastic sheet with the picture on the top. There is also a coordinating die that you can purchase separately that I'm going to be using in today's video. So because this is red rubber and it is foam mounted already, if you're going to use a stamping tool, you will need to take out your foam insert. So I went ahead and did that. I have a piece of white cardstock here that I lined up down in the corner of my MISTI, lined up my stamp. I'm going to have it right in the center, and then just close the lid of the door of my MISTI to pick that stamp up, and it's going to cling right to it. So I'm going to stamp this Lily stamp set in the Oreo ink from Tailored Expressions. This is a Copic friendly ink, a very nice true black. So I'm just pushing down with that ink pad, and since it is new, it is pretty juicy, so I didn't have to push too hard. And then I can just close the lid and stamp that down, and this is going to stamp perfectly and evenly. And like I said, just make sure that you're removing that foam insert from your stamping tool. Now because I do like to double stamp, I'm going to go ahead and do this again. My paper didn't move, so I don't have to really worry about it not lining up, and plus it's the reason I love using the MISTI tool. So just closing the lid one more time, giving this a good push down for even coverage, and I'll have some really nice true black lines. So this is quite a large stamp. This does take up a good portion of the card panel, and because there is kind of so much going on, you can see I'm showing you there, you can bring in that cover sheet and that will help guide you where you need to color if you're unsure. So in my case, I had a hard time kind of figuring out where my leaves were, and so I do have that actually propped up in front of me so that I can see where my flowers are, where the leaves are going behind, and then I can start coloring. So I'm going to be doing some nice bright pinks, and I want to leave a little bit of a white edge around my lilies. I did a Google search on some different colors and how they looked, so that's kind of what I'm basing my coloring off of. For the lily, I'm starting off with a dark pink, which is RV09, and I'm just adding a little bit from the center going out, and I'm actually keeping kind of my longest flicks to the middle of the petal because I want to make sure that I'm going to stay white-ish on the outside of the petal. Then I blend out with an RV06, RV04, and RV21. And each time I'm going over that previous color and then extending out a little bit to blend it out. And with the RV21, I'm not going to go all the way to the edge. I'm going to leave some white space. Typically, I color my images twice, but I did decide to just leave this as is. I didn't want to go over it too much. With pinks, I honestly have a hard time with pinks. They tend to bleed on me because I do color so heavy and I add so much ink to my cardstock. So I was trying to stick with one layer. That way I wouldn't take the chance of bleeding or seeping through into my leaves. And I was really happy with how they turned out on the first run. So I was good with that. And then I just moved on to the buds that are peeking out. And like I said, I am referring actually back to that picture that's provided from Tailored Expressions. And now I moved on to the second largest flower. So same thing. I started from the center with the darkest color. And you can see I extended out a little bit further towards the middle of the petals. And then I'll blend out with my 3 remaining colors. I am going over the stamens a little bit. I think that's what they're called. So I'm coloring over it a little bit just because I didn't want to be too fussy about going around them. The main one I do leave to try and add some color to later, but otherwise I wasn't as concerned about it. So now I'm just blending out, trying to leave a little bit of that white edge to the flowers, and these would be gorgeous in any colors, whether it's the purples or the multicolor. I haven't gotten up enough gumption yet to try the multicolor flowers, but I think they're gorgeous. And for this last bud that's down here, I actually just followed the artist drawn lines. So I started off with the darker color and then blended those out, trying to leave a little bit of that white space. And on for the leaves, I'm using YG67 as my darkest color. Then I'll have a YG17 and YG23. And same thing as before, I'm definitely referring back to that picture that is provided with the stamp set, because this is where I get a little confused, is where all the leaves are intersecting, where there may be actually open space behind the flowers. So I did refer back to that quite a bit, and I just had it propped up in front of me there. Now for most of these, I am putting my darkest color towards the bottom of the leaf. I wasn't as concerned where a shadow would be, which is typically how I color when it comes to flowers. I'm not as concerned where an exact shadow would be. If there is a flower that's distinctly hanging over something, then I would add a shadow. But for the most part, I'm just putting my darkest color towards the bottom and then blending out with the YG17 and YG23. And that YG23 is such a really nice light color. It really helps give that contrast to the leaves. Gives it a lot of dimension. And these two I only colored once. I didn't go over them twice, which is typically what I would do. And like I said, mainly because I was really happy with the first run. A lot of times I do color twice to really give it a lot of depth and dimension. I do like to really show off the depth of the flowers or the leaves. And I like the way the ink sinks into the cardstock. But like I said, really happy with the first run on these. And it actually was pretty quick to color up, especially since I had that picture to reference to. So just adding a little bit on these last few here, adding a little bit of the shadow area where the flower is hanging over the leaf at the bottom. Hopefully not making you seasick by turning my cardstock so much. That's just easier for me to color by turning my cardstock. One thing you could also try, especially on these flowers where I left a little bit of the white edge, is I do actually try and come in with a blender pen. And blender pens don't really blend. They actually kind of take away color. So I did try on a couple of the petals on my bottom flower with the blender pen, but I really wasn't liking how it was looking, so I didn't end up doing it to the rest of them. And you can't tell so much in the picture in the end because I didn't do it a lot. So you can see I'll be coming in with that blender. Oh, I'm finishing up my middle portions of the flower. Sorry about that. And then I try the blender pen, not happy, so I left it. Then I'm just going to take that coordinating die and line that up. I'm going to hold it in place with some Post-it tape, and then I'll run that through my die cut machine. Next, I'm going to work on my background. This is the striped background from Tailored Expressions, and I think this is a really great staple to have in your collection because it can add so much to your card with very little effort. So what I did here for my MISTI tool, since this is such a large stamp set, is I want to leave a little bit of margin in my MISTI, so I used some repositionable tape to hold my cardstock in place, lined up my rubber stamp where I wanted it to go, and then I'm inking this up with sea salt. Now this is sea salt cardstock and sea salt ink, which is a really, really light ink. It looks darker here, but you'll see in my pictures it faded back a lot. It's still there, so it's just kind of lightly in my background. I could have maybe stamped this a third time, or I could have used maybe a darker gray, but I'm still happy with that. Next, to add a little more interest to the background, I just scribble on some of the Oreo ink onto a craft sheet. I have a little bit of the Perfect Pearls, and I spritzed down some water, and I'm mixing all of these together, and what it created was this really beautiful dark gray because it mixed with that white Perfect Pearl. So I'm just flicking that all over the background, and it's a dark gray, so there's the contrast, and it has some sparkle to it. So you can see all that beautiful splatter on the background. For a sentiment, I'm going to use the Friendly Phrases stamp set. This has a lot of great variety of sets on here, sentiments. I'm deciding to go with thank you because I can always use thank you cards. So once again, using my MISTI, making sure you do not have that foam insert in there. And I have Oreo cardstock, which is a great black cardstock from Tailored Expressions. I prepped that with my anti-static powder tool so that my embossing powder only sticks to this embossing ink that I'm using. And then I'm going to sprinkle on the white embossing powder from Tailored Expressions. And I wanted to show you this up close because this is a really, really great white. Like, that is stark white. So I was really happy with that. I'm going to have to get myself a couple more jars of that. So what I did there is I just cleaned off any excess powder with a Swiffer cloth. And then I'm lining up this sentiment labels die around my sentiment, and I'm holding that in place with some purple tape. I'm using the purple tape this time because of the embossing. My Post-it tape tends not to hold very well. So I'm using the purple tape, ran that through my die cut machine, and then I'm finagling this so I can have clean edges from the die on both ends of my sentiment. You could also just trim this down with your paper trimmer. I just really like the edges that the dies leave. It's just nice, crisp, clean, and also the blade on my trimmer is getting dull. So this gave me a really nice clean edge to everything. I trimmed my stripe panel down to 4 by 5 1/4. I added some double-sided tape to a craft foam sheet. I added the tape to both sides, and then I attached that to a white card base that I made out of the Sugar Cube cardstock, which is a really bright white cardstock from Tailored Expressions. And then I added this 3M foam tape to the back of my floral image so I could pop that up for dimension. I'm going to do the same thing with my thank you sentiment, so I'm just adding the foam tape behind there. I cover the entire thing to make sure it's even coverage. And I'm going to add that right in the middle of my floral image. That black just really pops. This bright pink floral catches your eye, so I really liked how all of this came together. And then for a little bit more sparkle, I'm going to come in and add some Valentine mixed jewels from Pretty Pink Posh. And I'll just attach that with my Lawn Fawn glue and my jewel picker. And that will finish up my card for today. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at the Tailored Expression products that I showed you today. If you did enjoy this video, I would really appreciate a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so and would like to see more videos from me. And be sure to click the little bell so you're notified of when new videos do come out. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time.